Hi, for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. This is the Pro and Con Show, and I am your host, Michael James Ott. And as always, welcome to the show. So, just a couple words. The purpose of the show, hopefully over time, enough people will watch step by step, that more and more people will be encouraged to be better citizens. By that I mean get more involved, to leave some of the apathy behind, and to really be more informed citizens. Okay, so and that takes a little bit of time, that takes a little bit of effort, and that means you've got to ferret out the truth, the pro and the con, the good and bad, the for and against, hence the Pro and Con Show. And what is the truth? Well, it's just factual stuff like who, what, where, when, right? And some people sometimes say, well, what about how and why? Well, when those hows and whys are self-evident, then it's okay to report those as facts too. But very often, how and why, that's harder. That very often it's kind of an investigative thing, and to really ferret that out can be quite difficult. Okay, so how and why, but for sure, who, what, where, when. These things can be known, are known, and we should focus on them and leave behind a lot of the explanation or prognostication or opinion or whatever that is in the different information streams that come at us. All right, so today's show, actually, I haven't done this in a while, so I'm calling it COMPARO, and we're actually going to look at 5 different sites, and I've looked at them in the past, and I look at them myself almost every day, to be honest with you, because they're a spectrum of the political leanings in this country, and because it's a spectrum, you get these different viewpoints. And that's good, because you can figure out the whole truth or something closer to what is probably the whole truth by having people, strongly opposed to a certain thing versus someone that's strongly in favor, and then read the articles that they talk about or watch their shows or whatever, and then see those differences, and then you can come to understand what the reality is, because for sure these people that are against are going to give you a strong view of the con kind of arguments about some particular issue, and these people that are for, they're going to give you strong arguments for the pro, and kind of mostly ignore the con, and so then you get pro and con. Make sense? Okay, hope so. That's what I do. Makes sense to me. Anyway, so the more left-leaning Huffington Post, quite left-leaning. Then there's CNN, which people argue is pretty strongly left-leaning themselves. NPR, National Public Radio, they have their radio shows, but they also have a website. And generally, it's been my experience, they're pretty much in between, mostly just factual stuff. And then you have Fox News, which is more right-leaning, if you will. And then there's Breitbart, which generally is even more right-leaning. And so I haven't actually compared those, but announced that Joe Biden has decided to take on Kamala Harris as his vice presidential pick. So let's look and see how those 5 websites are treating this. So Breitbart, okay, which is again right-leaning, okay, generally supportive of Mr. Trump, okay, and so their headline is, okay, Kamala, the #1 liberal in the Senate with exclamation points. Okay. So further left than Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders. So these are the kinds of things, again, it's not just the information, but it's also the presentation of the information. So exclamation points, big bold letters, big type fonts, and all this kind of stuff. It's all intended to push those emotional buttons, oh, socialist, leftist, those kinds of things. And that's a problem. Okay. So that's Breitbart. Now let's look at Fox News. So this one, there is some coverage, and it's in the small headlines here. So let me, let's see here. So there's one person, I think she's a significant player in the Democratic Party, down in Brazil. Kamala Harris will be a great VP, an incredibly talented woman. Then a lot of it goes into, I think they had a previous headline that says something like Kamala Harris is part of a very left-leaning ticket or something like that. But their main headline now is they're talking about so-called soccer moms, so the suburban women. And so Trump is touting rollback of certain suburban housing regulations, whereas Biden is talking about expanding them, supposedly. This is the headline. Okay. So really, there was some other stuff here on Fox News about Kamala Harris, but they've kind of removed it already, so not a big showing there. I got an old version of NPR here. So NPR, okay, so it just their headline is 5 takeaways on the new Biden Harris presidential ticket. So, and the subheadline is, in historic pick, Joe Biden taps Kamala Harris to be his running mate. Okay. And then CNN. So CNN, their headline is, with Harris, Biden draws the clearest contrast with Trump yet. But their other headline, interestingly enough, so Kamala Harris has not stayed in the headlines all that much. So there's this guy, Sanjay Gupta. He's their medical expert on CNN, and they routinely talk to him. He's on their regular shows. He's a consultant for them, and so on. And he says, Dr. Gupta says, I'm not sending my kids to school. He sat down, he visited his kid's school, he sat down with his family, and he looked at the data, and they've made a tough choice, and they're going to basically stay home. It looks like he's got teenage daughters. So they're not going to school. So I presume that the follow-on beyond that is that he's saying that it's still not safe. We're not doing enough testing, enough segregation, and contact tracing, and all those things to make it safe for people, according to Mr. Gupta. So anyway, that's CNN, and then the last one is Huffington Post. And Huffington Post says it's actually the main focus is because a couple of the definitely most progressive women in Congress that were elected a couple of years ago, they have passed through their primaries, and so they're up for re-election. And so the squad, so-called squad, there's a handful of these very progressive women, minorities mostly, that are known as the squad. For some reason, it's a bad thing. Somebody called them that. It's again bad, simple labeling, tactic of propaganda. But in the sidebar here, okay, why Kamala Harris is a historic vice presidential pick, how Biden chose Harris. Harris pick sparks Biden's best grassroots funding haul ever. according to the campaign. And then the Trump campaign struggles to define Biden and Harris and settles on socialist. And what happens with Harris's Senate seat if she becomes vice president, which is, by the way, the governor in California appoints someone to serve out her seat, and the governor happens to be a Democrat. All right, so that is, if you were to go in and read some of those articles and stuff, this is how you, in engineering, call it vectors. This is how you vector in on the truth. You get the information from different sources, and then you find that the truth lies in some kind of amalgam of those information sources. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about. Is okay. I've been speaking to you in this video for I don't know, around 11 minutes plus or minus, and it's that amount of time that you would sift through and read the different things and get the perspective, instead of reading any one of those information channels by itself with its built-in limits on the information provided and the bias of the commentary in it. It's a bad thing. And I hope over the course of hundreds of videos, I will convince people of that very fact. Okay, so for the Pro and Con Show, I am Michael James Ott, and until the next show, bye for now.